Colonel Pickering is a former military person, which could be understood by his name itself. But his other identity is that he is also expert in speech. He can he can understand the different dialects. He is the person who bets with Professor Higgins over Eliza. He rather challenges he rather challenges Professor Higgins to transform this simple flower girl into a lady by her manners and by her speech. He expects Eliza to change into a lady of the Lord and pass all the norms of upper class. Though he has a military background, he has always been very kind and courteous to Eliza. That is why Eliza is very grateful to him. He is a thorough gentleman, we can say. He has been given to the studies. If various Indian dialects, but he is not devoted to that study like Professor Higgins. When we compare Colonel Higgins or Colonel Pickering to Professor Higgins, we realize how boorish the professor is. His role in the plot is to take forward plot in the theme it was meant for. His treatment of Eliza is unlike Professor Higgins. He treats Eliza with great respect. Though, though she was a flower girl, it is said that the way an individual is treated influences what way they think of that themselves. We can very easily compare here both Professor Higgins and Colonel Pickering. His kind words, Miss Doolittle, to Eliza really goes ahead and gain her spirit. It is these words, or it is those words of Colonel Pickering that made Eliza come up with a rather spirit. In the end, also, he apologizes Eliza for they treated her like their subject. On the contrary, Professor Higgins, he never does that. He never does that. Shaw himself describes Colonel Pickering as an elderly gentleman of the military type. He knows Professor Higgins by his reputation. Means Colonel Pickering knows. He has comes from India where he has lived for a considerable amount of time. General impression about him is that he is amiable and a friendly man. He's he's equally excited about the transformation of Eliza. And transformation of Eliza undergoes and shares some exciting moments with Professor Higgins. Colonel Pickering serves as a foil to Professor Higgins. Right from the beginning, he is he is described as a thorough gentleman, opposite to that of Higgins. When Eliza comes to Higgins, or when Eliza comes to Higgins' laboratory at Wimpole Street, Higgins refers to her as a baggage and gutter snipe, whereas Colonel Pickering is shown offering Eliza a chair to sit. He calls her Miss Doolittle. He is warm, he is calm, he is lovable, and he is also sensitive. In every inch, he is a gentleman. There are there are several other characters as well in the play, but we will take some of the important one. Of course, it is not possible to take each and every character. The first character that comes to my mind is that of Mrs. Higgins. Mrs. Higgins, Mrs. Higgins is a stately lady who is in her 60s. She is an experienced lady in the affairs, in the life affairs. She does not like a person to be reduced to a level of experimenting tool. Obviously, she does not like Eliza to be an experimenting girl. She considers Colonel Pickering and her son, Professor Higgins, to be childish in doing so. She has a wisdom of life, though she actually belongs to the upper class of society. We see that she restores proper human elements in her character. That is why that is why she shows a kind of a wiseness in many dealings she has. In the end of the play also, when Professor Higgins asks Eliza to for get certain things for her, she tells her son that she would bring them for him. Not to worry, she takes side of Eliza because to her, Eliza, first of all, is a human being and needed to be treated as a human being. We can see that she has intelligent perception about human beings and life as well. She sympathizes with Eliza as she understands that her son has been treating her as experimenting girl. She even discerns that treatment. She understands the feelings of a person and even tells her son to respect those feelings. Usually, usually Victorian society is dominated by men, but she, though much of the time remains confined to her drawing room, she has her liberty. She exercises that liberty when needed. We can compare here Eliza and Mrs. Higgins. Mrs. Higgins, perhaps, perhaps an earlier stage of Eliza. Eliza possibly may take her own course of life outside the borders of wall in the open society, but Mrs. Higgins takes her stand within that wall to break away from the constraints of the society is not an easy task, my dear friends. It takes ages to go against the society and its norms, especially with women. It takes long, but the gradual process could be seen with these two characters. Eliza and Mrs. Higgins. She perhaps best understands what is to be a woman in Victorian society. She loves her son, but is upset of his manners. The best part of her character and of her good human being is that whenever Eliza wants to fearless get good or fearless advice, she turns to Mrs. Higgins. She is independent and progressive. Of course, she is bit worried about why her son has not got married so far. Shaw makes this lady more than just a talking head. Her presence on the stage counterbalance as the unwanted things makes the play rather human. It is not only a laboratory of the language, or it is not only the laboratory of language learning, devoid of human feelings and emotions. Mrs. Higgins had a limited role, but an important role in the play. Now there is a Mr. Alfred Doolittle. Alfred Doolittle is father of Eliza. He is dustman. He has a sonorous voice with Welsh accent. He feels proud to be the member of undeserving poor. Surprisingly, he has at least 6 wives, and equally he is free without any fear. Can you imagine that, my dear friends? 6 wives and still free. Rather, it is unimaginable. Let me share a joke with you, my dear friends. One guy, I mean one husband, was boasting a lot. He was telling his friend, my wife is like this, my wife is like that, etc., etc., and etc. He told once to his friend that my wife won't eat any food before I go home. Obviously, the friend was very much impressed. He said, good, 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 yaar. You are so lucky that your wife loves you so much so. Of course, she loves me so much so that she won't cook food before I go to home. When I reach home, I have to prepare the food and then only she eats. Friends started laughing loudly. Friends, you have to understand this as a joke. And, anyways, we are talking about this man, Alfred Doolittle. Eliza's father, he does not follow any norms. He and enters the Professor Higgins home, enters Professor Higgins' home, knowing that his daughter has entered there. He has no more objective, that is to get some. He no more objective than to get some money, if he can, by exploiting the whole situation. He does not seem to love his daughter, Eliza, so much before the last act. In the last act, he invites his daughter for his marriage. So funny it might sound to our Indian listeners. He considers he considers himself to be the original moralist of the British society. He feels irritated with his money, but wise enough not to part with that money. He is he is the only person in the play who openly speaks about the middle class morality. He has the courage to say, is this reasonable? Is this reasonable? Is it fairity to take advantage of a man like this? The girl is belonging to me. He is free of any burden of middle class morality. He behaves like the way he wants to. He does not mind taking some pounds from Higgins, but he is happy with that. He is happy with that only, or with that much only, because that amount would be sufficient for his drink and for some fun. He speaks in a different way, repeats often his words. He is simply a mysterious. His speaking might be illogical, but but they deal with a certain issues. Now it is time for we to talk about the Freddy. Freddy is a young man of about 20 years of age. He belongs to the upper class society. He is weak but has a good nature. He can be taken as a good gentleman. He is infatuated with Eliza. Eliza and he are constantly in touch with each other. He is a kind of a person who can be described in this kind of a शेर. तेरी गलियों का दीदार करता हूं तो खुश हो जाता हूं. तेरी गलियों का दीदार करता हूं तो खुश हो जाता हूं. तेरी गलियों का जब दीदार नहीं करता हूं तो नाखुश हो जाता हूं. वाह 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 वाह. जब तुम्हें देखता हूं फूल लिए, फूल सी खूबसूरत, न जाने कितनी बार कितने दिलों को मैं हारता हूं. He really has the romantic nature. He expresses his feelings through love letters he writes to Eliza. He could not chat with her as the WhatsApp was not there. Thanks God. Freddie is a rich boy. He can give Eliza the love she needs. He serves as a background to the play. He stretches imagination of the audience and opens a door. Maybe Eliza would enter in it. Who knows?